Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another exciting day of music theory. Today, we're going to work on Book 2, Lesson 9.3, talking a little bit more about intervals, continuing our lessons from the last couple weeks. So, taking a look back at what we've talked about with intervals so far. So, we started off by just measuring the number or the distance between an interval. So, we started like somewhere with this perfect fifth. We started with the number 1 on the bottom, and we went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we got a little bit more specific where we put labels like perfect or major based on if those intervals lived naturally in the key signature of the bottom notes. So if this was D major right here, we'd have 1 sharp, and that would be on F sharp. So if we had any other natural pitches here like we have on A, then that naturally fit into the key, so that's going to be a perfect fifth. Same thing here, since this has that F sharp, that is going to be a major third. Now, if we didn't have that sharp there and we just had D and F, like is there now, we know that that third is lowered from the major key, so that is going to be a minor third from D to F. Today, we're going to, we've talked a little bit about our augmented and diminished intervals. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and then we're also going to talk about how we can count half steps in order to double check our work. So on 9.3, it gives you a little bit of more practice with our intervals. So here, if I am in G major, because I have that bottom note, I need to write the upper note for these intervals. So if I have G major, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, so it's going to be on a B of some type. Now, since I'm looking for a minor third, I know that I need to figure out the major third and then lower it a half step to make it the minor third. So B occurs naturally in the G major scale because there's no sharps or flats in our key signature on B. So that is going to be B natural to give us our major third. So to lower that to a minor third, I need to add a flat. Okay, now let's take a look at, this is E flat, so I know that I'm going to need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, a flat of some type. I think of my key signature of E flat, which is B, E, and A, and I see that B should indeed be flatted in order to make that a perfect fifth, so that needs to be a B flat. Minor sixth on C, so C has no sharps or flats, so I know I need to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 right here, which is actually going to be on a leisure line, so that's going to be an A. And then I know that there are no sharps or flats in the C key signature, so I know automatically that that needs to be a flat right there, okay? So that is how we write those intervals. You can do some more practice on this page if you would like, but just remember, start at the bottom note, figure out if it fits within the major key signature. If it needs to be a minor interval, then you need to flatten it, okay? So let's talk a little bit now about how this kind of works on the keyboard and how we can kind of count half steps like we have in the past to figure out what our interval is. So based on the number of half steps between our intervals, just like with our half steps, whole steps, and enharmonic equivalents, we can do the same thing here. So it takes 12 half steps to get to an octave. So right here, I know that 1 half step is going to be my minor second. 2 half steps is going to be my major second. A minor third is 3 half steps. 4 half steps is a major third. 5 is called a tritone, which is a little bit of a weird term, tritone. Or we could call that, we'll talk about this soon, but we can call that a diminished fifth or an augmented fourth. We'll talk about that more in just a moment, but the technical term for that is tritone. Then if we have 6 half steps, that's going to be, oops, sorry, I skipped 1. Tritone is actually 6 half steps, my bad, because our perfect fourth comes after our major third. So perfect fourth is 5 half steps, tritone is 6, our perfect fifth is 7, then we get to minor sixth, major sixth, minor seventh, major seventh, and then perfect octave, like that, okay? So if I have a keyboard, like I do on this page, and you'll be provided one on your next quiz, if I see that I have an A and a C sharp, all I need to do is count the half steps I know it's going to be a third of some type because I go A, B, C, so it's some type of third. This would be a minor second, major second, minor third, major third. So I know that A to C sharp would be my major third. Let's take a look at an example on here. So this can kind of take the place of the key signature method. The key signature method is really helpful to do this quickly so that you don't have to count and you don't have to have a piano. But as we're getting to more and more difficult intervals and we're doing more and more of them, the keyboard can be really, really helpful. So if I have an E flat to a G like I have here, so I know that this is going to be a third of some kind, but let's test. If I have an E flat and then I have a G, I go up, that's a minor second, major second, minor third, major third, and I land on that G natural. So I know that E flat to G is our major third. Let's do a couple more examples. Let's do something a little bit bigger of an interval. And so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I know that that is going to be a sixth of some type. You could go ahead and guess or figure that out based on the key signature of F major. But let's count the half steps just to double check our answer. So we have F to D flat. So I go here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 half steps. And if I think through, my 8 half steps is a minor sixth, which is correct because D should be natural in F major because there's just one flat, okay? So if the key signature method is like, it's kind of slow going for you, this is a really easy way just to memorize. 1 is a minor second, 2 is a major second, 3 minor, 4 major third, 5 is a perfect fourth, 6 is the tritone, 5th is, or 7 is a perfect fifth, 8 is a minor sixth, 9 is a major sixth, 10 minor seventh, 11 major seventh, 12 octave. Now, the one thing that is important to note is that we do have to take a look at the accidentals, and inharmonic equivalents in these types of situations really, really matter. So if right here I had, let's just take this for an example, right here on this, if I used a C sharp instead of a D flat, which are inharmonically equivalent, so if I have a C sharp here, the first thing that I'm going to notice is, hey, this is a fifth now. So it's going to be some type of fifth, not a sixth. And then if I count my half steps, that's still going to be 7 half steps, so, or 6 half steps. For our perfect fifth, I'll just double check this work right here. So this is going to be, so this is still going to be, sorry, lost my train of thought, 8 half steps. So if I go from F to C sharp, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But then if it's a fifth of some type, 7 half steps would be a perfect fifth, so it's going to be something else. That is where our augmented comes into shape here. So an augmented fifth has the same amount of half steps as a minor sixth. So this goes right here. Okay, let's do a couple more examples so that we can kind of figure that out. So right here, if I have this D and this G, if I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and I think of my key signature, F sharp, and C sharp right here. So G should be natural, so that is a perfect fourth. Oops, brain's not working today. So we have a perfect fourth there. Now, what happens if I made this a G sharp? So this is our tritone here. Let's take a look at what this looks like. So D to G sharp, I have, start on D, I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that is 6 sharps, which is our tritone. But since it is a fourth, we're going from D to G, we have to call that a fourth of some type. So what we're going to call that then, since it's a half step bigger than a perfect fourth, we're going to call that now an augmented fourth. The same thing would happen if we did the opposite, and instead of a sharp, we used a flat here. This is still going to be a fourth of some type, but now it's no longer a perfect fourth because it's a half step smaller than it should be. So that is when we have our friend, the diminished fourth. So anytime you have a perfect interval, if it's not a perfect fourth or a perfect fifth, you're going to assign it either a diminished or an augmented, okay? But this is where it gets really important to make sure that you are still counting the number of lines and spaces between each one. Let's do another example. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's going to be a fifth of some type. Now, I already know that this is a perfect fifth because I have F, C, and there's a lot more sharps, but I see this 6, or the C should be naturally sharped in that key signature. I could check my work, but I feel confident about that. Now, what would happen if I made this a C natural? Let's check the half steps. So F sharp to C natural. Let's clear this little bit right here so we have a clean workspace. Here we go. So here I start on F sharp. I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's my 6 half steps, which is not quite a perfect fifth because we would need that C sharp. So that would again be a diminished fifth, okay? Or that tritone, because we can have an augmented fourth or diminished fifth make those tritones. So spelled the same, those are kind of like enharmonic equivalents. The augmented fourth, if this was written as maybe an F and a B sharp, or sorry, let's see, what would that need to be? So if we wanted to make a diminished fourth off of, or a augmented fourth off of F sharp, that would need to be a B, so it's a fourth, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I would put a sharp there, and that would equal the same amount of half steps. So whenever we do this with a major, or an interval that can be either major or minor, like this right here, what if I had here a flat and an F sharp? I think of my key. A should be sharped actually in an F major key. So F, C, G, D, A. Sorry, my sharps aren't quite in the right spot. Where'd my eraser go? F, C, G, D, A, E, there's my F sharp key signature. So that should actually be sharped. So it's actually, not only do I need to make this a natural, I also need to flat it one more time. So I'm actually making it 2 steps lower than a major third. So if I take a look at this, it's going to be a third of some type, but it's gonna only have the half steps equal to a major second, okay? Let's double check. So F sharp to A flat. We start here, F sharp, 1, 2, A flat, we're already there. So that, according to this chart down here, would be a major second, since it's only 2 half steps apart. But because it is a third right here, it needs to be 3, so this is going to be a diminished third, because it's 2 half steps lower than it should be. Same thing if we had a augmented third. Let's say we had a E flat and we had a G sharp. That's going to be a third. I think of my half steps, E flat to G sharp. Let's clear this one more time. So E flat. Oops, here we go. 1, 2, 3, and then we needed to go here, 5, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 half steps. So according to this chart, that would be a perfect fourth right here, but that could also be called, because it needs to be a third, an augmented third, okay? So if we think of our order, our firsts, our fourths, fifths, and octaves, all will either be perfect, diminished, or augmented. Then, if we're doing a second, third, sixth, or seventh, those are naturally either going to be major or minor. And then if we go up a half step from major, that's going to be an augmented interval. If we go 1 half step lower than minor, that's where we get our diminished intervals, okay? We'll answer questions on this tomorrow. Feel free to kind of work through this page. Notice that we've started adding accidentals on the actual pitches, not just using the white keys on the piano. So we're not just gonna have G, and B or something like that, we're going to start adding accidentals here, which can be helpful whenever we're using our piano. So start using your piano, count the half steps, but first make sure that you get the number right. Is it a second, a third, fourth, fifth? And then use the half steps to figure out, is it augmented, diminished, major, or minor? Okay, we'll talk about this more tomorrow in class and get some extra practice before we have our quiz over this on later this week. Have a great day.